messages are voters sending when they choose someone else over a party establishment candidate? Is the choice of Andrew Gillum over Gwen Graham and Ron DeSantis over Adam Putnam telling Tallahassee it's time to do something different in the Sunshine State? I'm Renee James Gilmore, and welcome to Black Almanac. Giving us their take on the voters' messages, we're joined today by Trevor Harvey, Sarasota NAACP President, and Dr. Lawrence Miller, political analyst. Dr. Miller, Mr. Harvey, welcome back to Black Almanac. So glad to have you here this morning. So, big upsets at the top of the ticket for both the Democrats and the Republicans in Florida. What's going on? What are voters saying to us?
Well, I think they are voting for change, voting for people who heretofore have not been at the forefront of politics as it relates to statewide offices. And the thing that gets to me is that you have a person like Andrew Gillum, and then you have also Sean Shaw, two African Americans at the top of the ticket as far as the Democrats are concerned. And when you look at DeSantis, you have the endorsement by Donald Trump that knocked out the establishment candidate, Adam Putnam. So, you know, it's really one of those things where I believe, as far as the electorate is concerned, that we're so divided, it seems, that, you know, you could have someone at one end of the spectrum and people at another end of the spectrum who are outside of the established norms because people are looking for a change. So,
Mr. Harvey, people are looking for a change. If I recall correctly, that was one of the slogans that our first African-American president used, time for a change. But is this about an African-American being at the top of the ticket, or is it about the country, and particularly here in Florida? Is it about the state being one end or the opposite? No room for middle ground anymore?
I just think it's really just a paradigm shift, really, is what it is. You know, you speak of the slogan that President Obama used in his campaigns about change, and I think people in the state of Florida, or the constituent base in Florida, is ready for that change. You know, we've had so much of the quote-unquote good old boy system for the last, you know, few years. The state is saying, hey, we need a shift. You know, the corner has a turn. We have to go in a different direction. No longer are we going to settle for, you know, just the norm. We want something new and fresh. And I think that's what we have with some of the candidates that we have that have risen to the top of the ticket in Florida.
Well, let's talk about new and fresh. In a sense, our own President Trump is certainly new and fresh. We have not seen this brand of politics becoming the norm, if you will. Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of change that we believe people are looking for?
Well, in a sense, yes, but I think it started, especially in the state of Florida, before Donald Trump, the event of Donald Trump. Rick Scott was outside of the norm.
Yes, he was,
okay?
Yes.
And so when you look at how people have progressed as far as looking at different candidates are concerned, they have more or less said, this system is not working for me. I think the people at the lower end, at the part where people are working every day, those people want change to address some of the issues that they are confronted with. And they vote along those lines, especially as far as their pocketbooks are concerned. So, you know, when you have a situation where a newcomer like Donald Trump comes in, who's inexperienced and shakes things up from the perspective of, you know, what the norms are that we have become accustomed to, there's an upheaval revolving around that. But at the same time, it has to be something good. It can't be something that, you know, you talk about draining a swamp, and then you become the swamp. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's one of those situations where I think, you know, people are looking for the bread and butter issues to be addressed as far as their everyday lives are concerned, and they want somebody who's going to come in and address those issues that they see as important to them.
Well, let's talk about that bread and butter issue, because on the side of the Republicans, when we talk about Ron DeSantis, is that what bread and butter issues do you believe the new party, if you will, the new voters are swinging to that side or swinging in his direction because of what?
Yeah, I think the newcomers are swinging to him is because they still feel, well, you know, one, he's promoted, he's being pushed and promoted by, you know, the president, you know, the United States of America. So I think you still have that section of our community that they feel that is the way, you know, the way that President Trump is running office, and now we have a potential governor who is in his liking and being trained by him, that they feel that is the way of, so to speak, you know, let's make America great again. So they're leaning, you know, towards that way. But again, I think of the majority of Florida, is ready for a difference, a change, ready for a different perspective when it comes to the political process in the state.
Well, when we talk about the political process and talk about the non-establishment candidates surfacing to the front, if you will, when we look at voter turnout, it was pretty good for a primary. People are really getting out.
People are motivated. There's no question about that. The question is, since Florida is a closed primary state, the independents have not been able to go ahead and vote. And the independent, in terms of the state of Florida is concerned, that is a large segment of your electorate that hasn't had the opportunity to speak. A little bit over 3 million
people, right,
yeah,
are independents.
As a matter of fact, more people register as independents than they do Democrat or Republican. So, you know, the question is, at the end of the day, who are they going to choose? And I think motivation is a key element here, because the people who are voting, my assessment of it is, as far as the Republican Party is concerned, the establishment people are on the lower end of the rung, and the people who support Trump is Trump's party at the top of it. Whether the people who are in that establishment part of it go along with a Ron DeSantis or stay home is the $64 million question. Are they going to go ahead and support a candidate who comes out and says, don't monkey this up? You understand? So the thing to me here is that people will vote both in terms of their pocketbook and what people stand for. What do you stand for, America, in terms of the type of people that you're going to put out there as your leadership? And we'll see what that answer is.
Well, Florida gets a lot of attention, not always in a good way, as we well know. So when we talk about Florida being a bellwether state, if you will, particularly given that we've had a primary, the entire nation is looking to see what happened in Florida. It's already being said that what happened in Florida could very well be playing out in the rest of the nation. So your take on where the rest of the nation is seeing Florida in terms of this huge divide, it seems, between, again, you're either with us or not with us. You're either with the Trump party or not with the Trump party. You're either on the side of the Democrats in terms of saying that we've had good candidates in the past, but we still want a change. So it just seems like it's a pretty huge divide that we're facing in this state.
Well, you know, Florida, even going back to when Vice President Al Gore ran for presidency, it seems like Florida was always the state that the entire country, you know, looked at, even when we go back that far. And so historically, the eyes have always been on Florida, you know, so whichever direction Florida shifts in, it can pretty much dictate the rest of the way the rest of the country goes. So that's why we have to make sure that we're on top of our game, that if we really want to see politics change in America, I think Florida has to step up and be that lead state, and to do that because all eyes are on us. You know, you mentioned a minute ago about the voter turnout in Florida was large. It was pretty large, but I'm still somewhat a little bit concerned when it comes to the general election in November about the turnout. Just the numbers in Sarasota alone, I can't speak about other counties. We have about 313,000 registered voters. I think we had a little over 100,000 voters that came out and voted. When you break that down, that's really on about 31 31% of the voter base. So I'm still concerned that we're not quite where we really need to be at as far as voter turnout, and that's why we got to take this next phase from this point on all the way to the general election. We really got to make sure that we're making sure people do what they need to do to get out to vote, because I'm not quite satisfied yet that it could swing the other way.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Trevor just mentioned. That is a great assessment of where we are, because voter turnout has been up and down. Usually the party in power loses seats in the midterms, and being the midterms, less people come out than they do in the presidential elections. So that's an excellent point in terms of what kind of turnout will we have in November.
What are you all thinking about the independents? Almost 3 million, or just a little bit over 3 million independents in this state. Do you think that as we look at the landscape, not just here in Florida, but in the country in terms of things changing, Massachusetts having an upset there, New York City having an upset there, do you think we might see in Florida where there is a greater push, if you will, to have the independents change from a closed primary to an open primary?
You know, I think that Florida should go into that direction, and we probably need to start having some of that conversation about Florida going into an open primary, because we are taking a significant number of individuals pretty much out of pocket for the primaries, which I think could decide some of our major, especially on the state level, some of our major races can be pretty much probably decided at that point. You can kind of almost know what the turnout's going to be if those independents were able to participate, in primaries. But because we have a closed primary, it's now that we have to hope that either party, because we're not telling people who to vote for, that whoever either party is able to reach those independents is going to basically swing the vote.
Well, the fact that people have registered, even if they register independent, means that they are paying attention and they
Absolutely.
are concerned. So do you think they're going to be sitting on the sideline because they're actually making up their minds, or are they sitting on the sidelines because they really don't want to be put into a box?
Well, I think there's a lot of merit to what you just got through saying, being put into a box, because they are sitting on that fence, so to speak. They can go either way, and they determine it a bellwether as to which way it goes.
Correct.
But the thing here is that in a state like Florida, especially in a lot of districts, and this is the thing that really gets to me, is the fact that you may have one person running with no opposition, okay, in the primary. So whoever gets that open or has that seat, right, in terms of nomination from that party, that's the person that basically has been elected to that position, because they don't have any other opposition from anybody else, okay? And yes, Florida has some provisions for that, but what happens is somebody gets a token write-in candidate to go ahead and say, yeah, I'm going to go against this person in the primary, and then therefore they can beat that person, no problem, for a write-in candidate. But at the end of the day, you don't have much choice as a independent voter in a closed primary state. Now, I'm more purebred a little bit in terms of the fact that if you are a Democrat, if you like to vote in a Democratic primary, be a Democrat. You want to vote in the Republican primary, be a Republican. But the reality of the situation is here in the state of Florida, I think it would make less of a us against them situation if independents were able to vote in an open primary. It would dilute that strict adherence to the most far reaches of either party, okay? It might bring them closer, because America basically is in the middle. It could be center left or it could be center right, but sometimes you have candidates that get in there that are so far to the right, so far to the left, and then people are left with, what is that old saying about you have to choose between the lesser of two evils, right? That's what they're left with. And I think maybe that would be a step in the right direction to go ahead and give people a voice, because as I said before, the registration within the state of Florida, the highest level is with independent voters. People are going and registering as independents.
Do you think we are at a point in this state, or perhaps even in the country, where a two major party system just really does not reflect where we are, given that they're both so extreme in terms of the candidates that are running, it seems now?
You know, I think so. You're absolutely right. I think you're onto something, that a lot of individuals, especially a lot of our younger folks, are really not wanting to, for some of the reasons that Dr. Miller just spoke about, not really wanting to tie themselves to either party, because they feel really at the end of the day, either party is really not benefiting us the best that they could. I had a conversation with a young man the other day, and he was really struggling with you know, this Republican and, you know, Democrat thing. And when he broke it down and really assessed it, he was like, you know, Mr. Harvey, you know, the Republican Party is here. They really not benefiting us. The Democratic Party is over here. You know, I got some issues with them. You know, there's conversations on both sides that nobody really wants to have, that parties are doing, you know, to the minority communities. And I'm just like stuck. I don't know where to, you know, I don't know where to go. You know, so I try to do the best that I can when I'm having those conversations. Is at the end of the day, you got to really look at the issues. Try to take the party out of it if you can, and really look at the issues that are going to impact you and your community to greatest. My late mentor, Pop, you know, the long-term host of this show for many years, has always tell us we have no permanent friends, we have no permanent enemies. We just got permanent issues. And I think at the end of the day, if we can get our community to really understand that, then we may not put ourselves in one of these boxes, the Republican box or the Democrat box.
And I would echo what Trevor just mentioned as far as young people are concerned. And I'll give you a perfect issue, and that is student loans, right? There have been issues revolving around student loans. You go to college, you take out a student loan. By the time you get out of college, you are in tremendous amount of debt, right? They could address that issue, and they haven't. So students get the feeling, young people get the feeling that neither party is really speaking to what are real problems in their everyday lives as far as millennials are concerned. And so, you know, when we look at these two parties, one party may ignore you, the other party may take you for granted. Okay? And so the thing to me here is that I get, and the mentor of mine also, so I'm most assuredly along those same lines. We used to discuss that all the time up in here, is the fact that that's right. You have permanent issues, permanent interests that you should be about when you go into that voting booth, okay? And if either party is not speaking to them, trust me, they won't ignore you the next time, and they won't take you for granted, okay? So it's a lesson well learned if you go along those lines in terms of understanding what is in your best interest and what are the issues of the day.
Well, you know, when we talk about lessons well learned, let's see how things are going to turn out in terms of, we've had kind of a precedent set. You brought up the fact that our own Governor Scott was not part of the party establishment, if you will. And when he ran, he talked about the fact that he was from a low-income household. His mom had to struggle to put him through school. They had to struggle to get food on the table. And so they talked the talk of, I understand what it's like to struggle. He also had a struggle in terms of, prior to being elected, he had investigations going on. Do you think Florida will give Andrew Gillum that same kind of red carpet, if you will, in terms of, because he's making the same argument in terms of, I come from a family where my father was a bus driver. Parents did okay, but they still had to put food on the table, concerned with that. He's had his own issues with investigations. So in terms of aligning with what we saw with our own Governor Scott, is Florida going to give that same consideration, do you think, to an Andrew Gillum?
I would hope that they would, but I think it's like two sides of a coin in the sense of, Rick Scott, that's been a long time that he ever, missed a meal because he didn't want to, okay? The fact of the matter is that Andrew Gillum is still in that mode of trying to go ahead and address issues as far as a better quality of life for people in general and his family along with it. Rick Scott, and as you mentioned, had his issues, said 75 times, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I plead fifth, okay, on an issue in terms of what happened with the company that he was leading, is a multimillionaire, all right, that could fund his own campaign. Andrew Gillum can't fund his own campaign. The great thing about him is that he has said that I'm not taking corporate money, I'm going to go ahead and get money from everyday people. You can't serve two masters. I read that somewhere along the lines. And the fact of the matter is that money is the mother's milk of politics, all right? If you want to run, you got to have some money. So if you get money from the people, you're going to serve the people. That's my view. And if you get money from the corporations, and that's who you see as the people who help put you in office, those are the people that you're going to try and satisfy, okay? So as far as that analysis is concerned, I see Andrew Gillum as more pure revolving around those lines than Rick Scott could ever be.
Well, as you make observations about people voting with their purses, if you will, their pocketbooks, what arguments do you think the voters are leaning towards, particularly from a Republican standpoint, when they want to hear about the pocketbook issues?
Well, those that have, money are always talking about, what type of tax breaks and tax credits and, stuff that, that they can get that will continue to fuel their wallets and their bank accounts, while the everyday, worker, as a result of these tax breaks are now struggling, a little bit harder, when it comes to little simple things, is just going to try to put some gas in your car. People don't realize that when a lot of these credits and breaks and stuff comes, it impacts all other kinds of things, all kind of household goods and stuff. I can remember, growing up, milk was, less than $1. Now milk is, approaching $3 for a gallon of milk. So it's these kind of things that those who vote with their pocketbook is, how's it going to benefit my pocketbook is really what it boils down to for them.
Yes.
Well, it's gotta be.
Actually, it's a half a gallon.
Well, there must be some issues for sure in terms of Republican voters saying you're impacting my purse, because I know lots of Republican voters, and they're not all business owners. They're not all very well to do. They're, and many times, you look at some Democrats, you look at some of the profiles of Democrats, profiles of the Republicans voters, and in a lot of ways they can be the same people.
Oh, definitely. There's no question. It gets back down to what we said a little earlier, as far as your interest is concerned. If you are a Republican, right, and you are a small business owner, what is the government doing to go ahead and assist in that small business? Now, this may take us a little bit off course, but the fact of the matter is that the United States is a capitalist country at its heart, but it has socialistic mechanisms. The things that help the small business owner from the government, right, are socialistic mechanisms. And we have gone ahead and made that be the boogeyman of what politics is all about. We had that situation where we said, oh, that person is poor, so they're lazy, and now they just want to get things. Well, this same public school that you've been going to is a socialistic mechanism. The ability to have a road going down the street that you put your business on, right? All of us paid for that, all right? So here it is. If you're a Republican, you should be looking at as far as human development is concerned, because you got to get these people educated to be workers in your business, okay? Hold these people accountable. Hold these people accountable as to what is the graduation rate, the high school graduation rate of the state of Florida, or the higher education, because you're making an investment in those schools and those institutions. So the thing here to me here is that whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you should be looking at how, again, getting back to that issue, what is the government doing, those people who are looking to now get into government, to go ahead and improve education, to improve the economy as far as jobs are concerned, and all the other different things that come around what government does. You know, I hate the fact that people are running against it, and this is the one last point I'll make about this. People talk about the Democrats at this point being in a situation where all they have to say is that they're against Trump. That's not true, okay? They have to come up with something, and some of them have come up with something like Andrew Gillum. Okay, they have come up with different things that they want to implement, like a $15 minimum wage, like Medicare for all. Those are things that didn't just start with Andrew Gillum. Those are things, if you really look at it, started back with FDR. FDR has a second Bill of Rights that has come up to today. So if you ever hear somebody talking about, well, all the Democrats are talking about they want to be rid of Donald Trump. That may be true, but they still have things that they are for, that they believe in, just like Republicans have things that they are for, that they believe in, and you have to make a cogent, educated choice as to what's in your best interest.
Yep.
One last question before we are out of here on Black Almanac today. Colin Kaepernick, selected by Nike to be the voice of the Just Do It campaign. Is he going to be able to stand under the pressure? Is Nike going to be able to stand under the pressure that is sure to come?
Well, you know, Cap, as we call him, as the younger folks call him, you know, Cap. Okay. I think he's proven himself. I think he stood the time. I mean, you know, here it is. You know, this young man, maybe not by choice. You know, a very lucrative, sports, career, because he felt what was right. He felt that I had a platform. I needed to speak out against the social injustices that was going on around this country as far as young black males and Latino males was concerned, and I'm going to take a stand on it. Regardless of my career, I'm going to take a stand.
Is Nike going to be able to stand up under the
Short
pressure?
answer, yes. Nike will be around long after Donald Trump and whatever rhetoric he runs about the NFL and how Colin Kaepernick has, gone ahead and brought to light police brutality in this country, which people tend to ignore and only see the fact that he's taken a knee.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You know you will be back.
Helping families with mesothelioma is all we do. My firm has been offering a free book on mesothelioma for over 10 years. Since that time, hundreds of people with mesothelioma have trusted us to represent them. We have local offices throughout the U.S. and there is no risk to you. Mesothelioma really is all we do.
Call us at 1-800-485-6000. That's 1-800-485-6000.
Or go to mesoonlylaw.com.
The ABC7 First Alert weather app just got even better. It's easy to use once you download it. First, tell the app to follow you, so you get alerts pinpointed to exactly where you are. Then customize your settings with all the places you go, from the beach to grandmother's house. Get accurate alerts for everyone you care about. You can even pick which weather alerts and categories you want and what they sound like. More ways to customize and more ways to keep your family safe. Download the ABC7 First Alert weather app today.
Download the all-new ABC7 First Alert weather app now.